Justice reigns from above.
No one can hide from my sight.
友人の剣をくれ
Cheers, love! The cavalry's here!
Hey everybody, I'm Greenhavak, and this is ESHQ's Good Game, Well Played. Joined by Cynize today, a little smaller show. We've got members running around doing their analyzing of some teams, but the show must go on.
Oh, of course, definitely.
So we're here at the start of Stage 3, and things are already electric. Things are heating up. And we've had some shocking victories.
Oh my goodness,
you know,
seriously?
we've had some teams really rise to the occasion.
I wouldn't say rise. I don't know about that. I mean, we all know who we're talking about. We're talking about the shock over the Gladiators, which was surprising.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it. I mean, the Gladiators didn't look too well, and what the shock did, they realized what was going on with the other teams and how taking out the tanks was able to defeat them.
Yes.
And that's what they focused on with Sombra.
And some suffocating Sombra play, which actually I do believe is going to be our play breakdown.
We're transferring over. We're not going to do a specific play. We're going to do basically covering the Sombra players of the week. Seriously, I feel like it was chaos this week just because seeing so much more Sombra play, and not many people can handle getting rid of all of their abilities.
Yeah.
Like, what are you supposed to do? Just primary fire, even if your primary fire isn't as good. But I mean, we'll get into that later.
Hey, W mouse 1, click on the head, lol.
Right.
But no, we our opening topic here, we wanted to take some time and talk about how the Overwatch League has changed us as players.
Yeah.
And one of the things for me that I noticed right off the bat is how because I like playing Widow, and I know you do as well. And one of the things I noticed right off the bat is how much more often I get to play Widow, just because players are going, oh well, yeah, I guess she's kind of good, she's useful. So I will say, hero perceptions I feel like have changed massively with the Overwatch League. So
for sure. You got the Mercy Farah became huge when Owl took off. You had Junkrat being played almost nonstop on defense maps. You had so many different characters being played in so many different ways. You saw a whole bunch of Torbs and Symmetras drop off, and them just getting destroyed whenever they were chosen by a team as well. So it's interesting how it's shaping the meta, shaping how people are playing characters. We saw Dive come in and just sweep over the competitive play. I mean, you see a Winston, you're going to play a Diva with it.
Yeah.
You see a Tracer, Genji is right there with her. So it's pretty impressive. I mean, they have changed a lot with meta with the Owl, but they've also changed how I perceive different characters. Going into the Overwatch League, I did not play Tracer at all.
Oh yeah.
I didn't touch her. I was like, I'm McCree, I'm a Widowmaker, Hanzo, whatever, it's whatever. But the moment I saw Sabiolbi play Tracer, I fell in love. I was like, this is great. They're playing mind games with the supports. They're playing mind games with the other Tracer. It's an absolute duel, and it looks so much fun. So I just hunkered down and was learning as much as I can on that character.
Yeah, for me, the biggest changes I've had were to my Widow play. I feel like I've gotten more aggressive and comfortable trying to take the game into my own hand a little bit.
Sure.
But the most notable thing for me is since the Overwatch League started, every tank that's in the game I now have above a 50% win record on, and all but Zarya I have above a 60%. So
wow, that's incredible.
It's just because the examples of how and when and why, and really that role responsibility and that like the internal win objectives for these characters have been so much I mean, so much more well-defined since the start of the Overwatch League, and being able to kind of copy-paste that into my own play a little bit has really helped my own play style, my own confidence, really making sure to synergize with my teammates. So all in all, I think the Overwatch League has had a very positive impact to my own play. So
I agree, and not just play either. For me, communication was a big one that changed. Communicating was shortened a lot when I was hearing the pro players just yell out Winston, 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 Winston nonstop. He's a big guy. You can see him across the field. You don't need to really tell him where he is. So really just shortening communications, getting your meaning across in the smallest and shortest way possible will contributed so much to my gameplay. I was able to, whenever I'm playing Zenyatta, everyone knows I'm playing Zenyatta. I put a Discord on something. If I say that character's name, they know what's happening. They know what Discord is on them. They know to focus them, and we're going to get more picks that way.
Absolutely. It's definitely the synergies, the gameplay, the communication. I just feel like now that there's I don't want to say a rule book, but like a guideline.
I mean, it's really a template that you're striving to copy, really. I mean, you're going for that. It's like shoot for the stars, or no, shoot for the moon, you'll land among the stars, or something like that. And that's basically what we're doing here. We're trying to be like them. We might fall short, but we're still climbing from where we were.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's for me really improved how much I enjoy the game. I really can't think of anything negative that's come from it. The only thing is I would say that I've had a few games where people want to overindulge the meta, like they want to force that tracer play.
Sure.
And it's like, well, we don't have a tracer that can make the play work right now, so just having a tracer to have a tracer isn't helpful.
Right.
But I mean, if that's the one negative out of mile long lists of positive that I could talk about as far as the Overwatch League. I think the only thing you know what? Here's the big negative.
Okay.
It makes me want a team queue. That's the thing that's missing is I can see the play, I can copy it, but I can't copy the team play.
It's a team game, and not having a set team really is a hindrance to the gameplay. So yeah. I completely agree.
So there's nothing worse than the feeling of knowing that if you were on a team and someone followed up on what you just started to do, or you know, if it's little things. It's like the win objective changes because there's multiple win objectives in a game. Of
course,
individual, team, and then obviously the game,
the actual objective.
Exactly, and it's really started to open up not only my own eyes, but I feel like a lot of people's eyes about like, you know, well, maybe instead of just yelling at like the Widow or the Hanzo that they're not getting picks, I should see if I, as a tank, am setting them up to have the space to do that, or you know, if I, the Zenyatta or the Mercy, are damage boosting or, you know, discording appropriately for the targets that should be, you know. And so I think it's really opening up the idea that it's really, you know what, it's highlighting the fact it's a team game.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying, it's really kind of pushing that narrative, and so it just comes down to, what do we need? Team game, team play, team queue.
All right. I mean, that's a great idea. I really hope they implement something where it makes it easier for it. I mean, you can definitely get your friends in there, but maybe that's just not enough.
Yeah, especially because I feel like you get punished a little bit for the group play, and you're versing players that are higher ranked. It feels messy. It doesn't feel like. It doesn't feel like I feel like the game should be, hey guys, do you want to play? And everyone goes, yeah, and then we hop on and we play.
Yeah,
you know. So, but ultimately, for the most part, nothing but positives. And if the negatives only come from the fact that because there's so many positives, I want more.
Right. We're now self-aware of what we're missing.
Exactly. It wasn't a problem when I was just gonna, Symmetra solo queue. I didn't. But let's switch on over gear-wise to our Sombra topics, our play of the week. We'll be right back. And so welcome back, and we're gonna jump into a little play of the week, some Sombra talk. So I'm gonna let you steer the ship here, and I'm just gonna be here to throw in some opinions and be a nuisance, I guess.
I mean, no, you're more than welcome to add on. I know that you have been getting a little bit more frustrated with the hero Sombra, as have I, and a lot of people in the Owl League has also been getting a little bit pushed around and bullied by the Sombra.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, I mean, Gladiators had a rough time this week. I mean, if we're talking about Sombra, we have to talk about the Shock versus Gladiators.
Shock the world.
Gladiators were torn apart by the Sombra. Dante was just playing on a different level. His hacks, his hacks were all over the place. Really, what is Sombra known for? Her hacks. Maybe she gets a pretty big burst with her Uzi down, but really, what is her ability that is the most frustrating part, the best ability? It's her hacking. You hack a Winston, he can't jump out. All he has is his little shocking bit there. What happens when you hack a Reinhardt? He can't shield anyone.
Can't do anything.
He can't charge. He can't do anything. You had to get close to him in order to do damage. Diva, same thing. She can only shoot short range with her attacks. Sombra
is
is
just really rubbing this in. You're picking all the tanks I play and just reminding me, by the way, when you're hacked,
you can't do anything. This is what happened to Gladiators. Fissure, Bijou, great tanks. Fantastic. Everything about them is wonderful. Once they get hacked and taken out, the team falls. And that is what the Shock did to Gladiators. They picked off the tanks and took out everyone else. I mean, Dante was playing great. I'm sure if you played any other hero, it would probably be to the same effect. Maybe a little bit less, just because of the impact of the hack, but still, he was on point with his aim.
I will say that my biggest nuisance, my biggest problem with the Sombra play is it's not as impressive to watch as so many of the other heroes. Sure. The fact that the hack's so powerful, but it's not like a skilled ability. The one thing I will say that was at least enjoyable to watch with Dante's performance on the Sombra was it seemed like he was clairvoyant. Clearly, the communication on the Shock was, just coming out rapid and accurate, because it felt like he would be charging his ult by spraying into a Winston, and he'd throw his translocator over a wall, and where would he land? Right next to the Mercy, right next to the Zenyatta, right next to whatever healer they were trying to use, and he'd be able to get that hack. And then what happens? The team rolls in, they win that team fight off that hack. So there was an impressive. The impressive part is the communication and the follow up and that kind of play, but the actual character itself is a little lackluster. It's not like you don't get those pop moments.
Sure. It's really just giving a lane for your team to an opening, if you want. We did see some Sombra fails from a couple of pros.
What team was it?
I don't. You know what? It escapes me. They were pretty hot. No, it's the Dallas Fuel. Unfortunately, AKM wasn't doing the best with her Sombra or his Sombra, and it was kind of interesting to see just the difference between Dante, a Sombra that was popping off, and one that wasn't. And really, it was kind of barely a difference. Yes, you got the positioning down stat with Dante, and you got AKM there kind of just flailing around a bit with his ultimates, and just a little bit bad, lackluster. But seriously, if you have a Sombra on the team, you gotta find her and take her out, or she's going to give openings that you cannot allow. It's an interesting concept for Overwatch League, because there are few heroes in the hero pool that will allow someone to take away all movement, all abilities, everything that you can do to get out of a certain situation. These certain heroes, we have Mei and we have Sombra, which right off the bat that I can think of, are the ones that just basically disintegrate all possibilities of escape if they get on you.
One of the things I will say we're already starting to see is some of the ways to play around the Sombra. Now, one of the things we saw in Sage 2 was Reapers, Roadhogs, McCrees, characters who are okay with relying on their W mouse 1, which is just basic movements and their primary fire. One of the other things I saw was actually I heard it on the command center was they're on the team is escaping right now, but in the behind the scenes they were talking about they were going to run Ana versus the Sombra, and the idea was they want to get the bio grenade onto the Sombra so that when she recalls she can't heal immediately and she has to wait.
Interesting.
And that's when they engage, because temporarily Sombra the team's going to be at a 5v6.
Right.
And the one thing with Sombra is she relies on suffocating play.
Yeah.
If she doesn't have her ult and she's trying to come in to swing the fight, that's where, if the teams are already engaged, it's hardest for her to get that hack off because there's already so much damage splashing around.
Yeah.
So their counter strategy became play safe, find the Sombra, make her translocate, get the bio on her, then make her translocate, and in that window, hard engage, full, mouse forward, and get that team fight going to give that window.
Right, and it's interesting to see a powerful ability like Ana's bio grenade being used for one character. That's rare when you actually create a strategy to play around a single hero in order to even have an opening. That's interesting to me. And really the pro players are taking advantage of how, not tilting, but how disruptive her abilities are. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I would say the closest thing that we're starting to see from some of the teams is they're also treating her kind of like a Pharah pick, where if you can't deal with the Pharah, the next way to engage on the team is to just hard engage on the team.
Yeah.
Force the Pharah to fight in one location where it's all right, look, we're not going to try to win, some fancy team fight with good positioning. We're just going to go and team fight you, and the one advantage we have is like damage per second wise, we will outdo you.
Right. Yeah.
And so
That's true.
It's definitely interesting.
Yep. We saw a lot of good plays. We saw a lot of bad plays from Sombra this week, and we saw a lot of plays that really turned the tables. So it's going to be pretty cool to see where this goes for this stage. I know that Overwatch and Blizzard is taking a look at her, trying to see how best to balance her, and I'm excited to see those changes come more into effect.
Yeah, because ultimately, as much as I'm not exactly a huge Sombra fan,
Sure.
I do like the fact that we're in a game where the flavor changes and it changes kind of rapidly. So it was Genji Tracer, now Sombra's kind of coming in. Widowmaker always kind of had her spot. Whereas Pharah, you never know when that small tweak's gonna happen, and then it's gonna be some of the choices that you didn't see coming, where it's like, Brigitte gets added to the game, and all of a sudden they go like, oh, we need to make sure that Reaper and Mei are better. Hanzo is getting a rework. How do these change based on just one character changing? So,
and going back to our initial concept, when these changes come into effect, what do you look at? You look at the pro players. What are they doing? We're improving our game based on what they're doing, and them changing based on what Blizzard is releasing, it's all connected.
And speaking about improving our own game, it's time to get into the E Factor tip of the week. We will be right back. All right, let's get into our E Factor tip of the week. And you know what? We're going to be focusing on character selection. Understanding who you're good at, deciding to pick heroes to be good at, to get good at. And a good way to start this off, and we'll get into our own preferences here in a second, but a good way to start this off is it's actually the inspiration for me comes from Ragtag. It was a kind of a comedic video where he looked at his entire hero pool and, as honest as he could be about his own skill, he said, I play this hero at silver, I play this hero at gold rank, I play this hero at platinum, this hero at masters. And that's how he examined his own hero skill and decided like if there's needs for a flex in a game, what he would say he could do.
Yeah.
Based on his own confidence on these heroes. So doing that's a fun exercise to really go, I don't know. I mean, like I say I can play every hero in the game, but how true is that?
Right.
So I think it's a good exercise to go through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you want to go through some of your own picks or?
I mean, yeah, down. I'm completely down. But really, this is going to be focusing on kind of my core heroes that I'm choosing.
Mm-hmm.
And really, a good tip is finding your core group, seeing if they're if they're good enough, if the amount is good. You don't want too many, you don't want too few, and you want to kind of go into a more in-depth training session with them if you want to improve.
Yes.
This is the tip. This is finding your core and training on that core. For me, my top 4 heroes that I like to play is Zenyatta.
Okay.
I play him around. I won't say what I'm playing him around, but okay, so best player, McCree. Second best, I would say Zenyatta, then Tracer, then Widow.
Okay.
So those are my core 4. However, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like your core hero should have at least one hero in each subdivision of type. So 1 support, 1 tank, and at least 1 DPS. So that's what I need to focus on, is finding a tank hero and really getting down to the nitty-gritty, getting down to the core, what makes this hero good, the strategies, looking at the pros, and that's what I need to improve in my own gameplay, is finding that tank and really working on his abilities.
Yeah,
what about you?
Well, one of the things I want to also focus on as I go into my own picks is when he talks about the core of the character. What is the core of the character? The core of the character is going to be individual win objectives. So what is your role? If you're a Tracer, get onto the Zenyatta, or is it farm your ult on the tank? Understanding how to decide which is your individual win objective. So if you find your own individual win objective, that synergizes into the team objective. And just like we were talking at the beginning of the show, individual, team, overall win objective. So then understanding about your mechanical skill, placement, communication. This is what the core of the character is. Some heroes need to talk more. Some heroes need to talk less. For a Widowmaker, for a Tracer player, you don't need to talk as much. In fact, it's actually encouraged for you not to talk and focus more on your job. The only thing you're going to want to do is, if you're unable to finish out your elimination, you want to make sure you call that out. Zenyatta half recalling. So that way, your Winston, your Diva, your Reinhardt, your Widowmaker, if you have one on your team, they know there's someone low, which means there's an opportunity for a play to be made. Specifically
for Widowmaker, body shot. That's all you need.
So for me personally, and I said this at the beginning of the show, ultimately I'm a tank player primarily, but my 4 heroes that I really like to focus in on are Reinhardt, Winston, Diva, Ana, and DPS-wise, the 2 I throw in are Tracer, Widow. Those are my 2 DPS, but my 4 core are the 3 tanks and then Ana as a healer.
I mean, seriously, if you can find your core and really get good at them, you can be a little bit more flexible when your team, if you're solo queuing or even duo queuing, figuring out what needs to be filled. And when you have all of the divisions slotted, you can make that fill.
The other thing, it goes underrated, is if let's say you're a great hit scan player, technically yes, you can switch to any hit scan. But if your muscle memory and your play mentality is, say, at Soldier's pace, when you play McCree or Widowmaker or a different hit scan, you're going to be thinking more about the pace that you're on, which means little things are going to slip through the cracks. Did you make that call out that you would have on Soldier? Were you in the perfect position that you would have been? And, these little in-game time, your own individual, personal timer get thrown off a little bit. And that's why we're telling you, find your core heroes, play those as a primary. Now, we're not saying only play these heroes, never flex off these heroes, but understand that if you're putting yourself in the position that you need to be the person who steps up and starts to make the plays, you need to be on your hero who you are most comfortable with.
Right.
So those little individual personal timers, understanding your win objective and how your personal win objective changes, your own mechanical skill, and your map placement, those are then the 4 categories of your cores that you want to be focusing on. So I think that wraps up our tip, though.
I think so.
So we will be right back because it is time for us to tell you our power rankings for the first week of Stage 3. We will be right back. All right, folks, we are here. It is time for the power rankings, which means it's time to get down into the nitty-gritty and the details because, you know what? It's every week of the Overwatch League is a little different.
Sure.
And
I feel like this one's a little bit kind of tough. It's kind of pretty squashed near the top there right now.
mm-hmm.
So it's going to be difficult. I'm interested to see if we have a difference in opinion for our power rankings.
Okay, well,
I mean, it is the first week of the 3rd stage, so
let's find out. For me, New York Excelsior is staying on top, followed by the London Spitfire. The Perfect Week Valiant are picking up the 3rd slot for me. Just barely. I know the Valiant outperformed map-wise the Spitfire, but something just didn't quite click for me that says, second best. So
okay.
Despite results, I still have the Valiant in that 3rd place position. Here is where it gets a little murky for me, though.
Okay.
Because you have a bunch of teams that could take this next line. The Fusion played decently.
Right.
Could have played cleaner, but they played good.
Yep.
Boston played well throughout the week.
Of course.
Outlaws played well throughout the league.
Of course.
Shock played well. So for me, I'm actually going to go a little controversial, a little bit. I'm actually going to go Houston Outlaws for that number 4 slot, followed by not the Dynasty. I do not have the Dynasty in my top 5. I'm actually going to give that to the Shock for the top 5. Now, I know the Dynasty got the win versus the Shock, and I mean, it was a pretty decisive win. It was a 4-0.
Yeah.
The maps, though, 99-99, and this was Dynasty's A team.
Yeah.
And they looked to struggle every single map versus the Shock. The Shock's ability to break down the Gladiators play, a team that we saw surge in Stage 2.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And really just go, we understand this meta. We have a Sombra player. It's suffocating. It's overwhelming. And so for me, I feel like if they can keep that going, I feel like only the top flight teams are going to beat the Shock.
Interesting. Well, definitely I was being a little bit too generous, I guess, because our power rankings are completely different.
Oh,
We got New York Excelsior taking up first. We have Valiant pulling up into 2nd.
okay, that's fair.
Spitfire going 3rd. 4th, I'm going with the Seoul Dynasty.
Okay.
Going with Seoul Dynasty. They're just a powerful team. I feel like they're a little bit off. They got some, they're 4th. Now for my 5th, it has to be the Outlaws with the win against the Spitfire. It has to be. I'm going to put them 5th, Outlaws 5th. So we have Excelsior, Valiant, Spitfire, Dynasty, and Outlaws.
Okay.
It's pretty solid. I'm interested to see, because Valiant did switch around their roster quite a bit. Is it the roster changes, or is it just the difference in their team makeup is throwing the other teams for a loop? I want to see them a little bit more in action before I really make that specific lock-in for that 2nd position.
Yeah, that's fair. And ultimately, I don't think the Dynasty don't belong in the top 5. I just think, I mean, I guess I'm factoring in coaching a little bit.
Okay.
Because you're going up against the Valiant, and you play your B squad,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then you go up against the Shock, and you play your A squad, and you get the 4-0, but not convincingly. So for me, I just feel like the dynasty as a whole right now is asking a bunch of questions, and they're not really getting the answers that they want.
Yeah.
So that for me is why I have temporarily removed them, and I've ultimately probably temporarily removed them from my top 5 as far as the power rankings go. But that does wrap up our show. Got some tips, had some fun, talked some how Overwatch has changed for us with the start of the Overwatch League. Complained about Sombra.
I mean, we didn't really complain. We just talked about how she's making an effect on the league.
Highlighted the suffocating nature of a hero new to the meta. And
great.
once we get a little more info, you can bet that we will be bringing you our coverage and our opinions on Blizzard World and the next coming week. But for this episode, that's the GG, and keep it well played.